But what if I told you a company spent 80,000 US dollar in AI and saved 15 million US dollar? And the most shocking thing they learned had nothing to do with the money. It was that their own expert team was giving different answers to the same questions 30% of the time. And nobody knew that. The AI wasn't a problem, the humans were. In this episode, I sit down with Alon Bochman, ex Google, ex Microsoft, top 1% in the Kaggle Master, someone who has shipped hundreds of AI use cases for Fortune 500 companies. And he says something that will change how you think about AI forever. Something really shocking. Stop talking about AI, start talking about your business. If you are a CTO trying to figure out what to do right now, or you are building towards a skill to become a CTO, this conversion exactly what you need. 5 action item, zero fluff. Let's get into it. Okay, great, perfect. Thanks, Ellen, for coming to the CTO story. Welcome to the podcast. So let's begin. Yeah, happy to introduce yourself, who Ellen is, what Ellen does, and how helps to the corporates and the companies.
Thanks, Nishant. I'm really happy to be here with you. Yeah, let me give you a couple of minutes about me. I've had about a 30-year career, about 10 years in web technology, about 20 years in data science, machine learning, and AI. I co-founded and sold 2 companies. One was in the year 2000, and one in 2025, in September 2025. The first one was a social networking company, but this was before Facebook, before Salesforce, before SaaS. So it was social networking shipped on a CD that you would pop into your server rack. And the second one was an agent evaluation platform called RagMetrics. I've also led AI product teams at Google and at Microsoft. I was head of AI for a Fortune 500 company called FactSet. And let's see, I'm a Kaggle Master. Kaggle is a data science competition site that's owned by Google. A Kaggle Master is somebody who's won a couple of medals. So I learned a lot from that experience. And at the moment, I'm doing consulting for some startups and some portfolio companies for private equity owners. And I'm basically helping them either, develop some MVPs or execute on AI transformation.
Love it. Great, perfect. Thanks for all the introductions. So you've gone from Microsoft, Google, then a billion-dollar company consulting, and I would say on the Kaggle as well, you got the gold medal, right? So based on this all the experience, so you basically went from, I would say, one of the million person to one in a million person. So how that journey looks like, help me to understand what was that moment when you feel like I need to do this and what you choose
Sure.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me start that answer with being like one of a million, right? So this is where I was. I was working for a very large consulting company. It was not one of the top 3 consulting companies. It was kind of a second tier, very, very large, maybe over 100,000 people worldwide.
Okay.
And this company had a very unique culture, which was sort of internal competition. It was very like it was capitalism outside and capitalism inside. So the idea was that business is not going to come to you. You have to go out and get it. So that means you have to advocate for yourself with your customers. You have to take initiative, and you have to be enterprising and go and like win the business. And it has some amazing qualities and it has some downsides. The amazing qualities is it led to a lot of growth for the company and made a lot of money. The downside is that there was like a lot of sharp elbows inside and people were competing. The divisions were competing with each other, and even like on a call, a typical call would be 5 or 6 people from the company, everybody shouting at everybody else like why they're the best one to take the deal forward, or even in front of a customer, like one group would badmouth the other group, and it was very,
Sure.
very sharp. Yeah. So this was very bad for me because I'm not a very loud person, and I generally like I couldn't really get a lot of I couldn't get a lot of words into the conversation. I would just listen, and by the time you finish listening, the call's over. So after a couple of years of this, my career wasn't really advancing. Like I wasn't getting the assignments, etc. And I was like, how can I differentiate myself? Like everybody here says that they know data science, they know machine learning, they know AI, and they're louder than me. And like, what can I do like to actually stand out other than just start yelling at everybody? So my solution was to go and compete. And the competition site that I found was Kaggle. So Kaggle, the viewers can take a look at it. It's kaggle.com. It's maybe the largest data science competition site in the world. There's something like 500,000 members. Of those, about 50,000 compete in 30 or 40 competitions annually. Every competition is organized where a third-party company provides some data and poses a question to the Kaggle community, and the community competes to build the best model. Now, best is measured by computer, so there's no it's not about how loud you are. It's not about how many people you know. It's strictly by the numbers. Computer, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Which model performs the best on the whole that data set. And I was really intimidated by this because it's a very, very popular site. So there's a lot of people competing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, wow, like reading some of that stuff, people knew a lot more than I did. And they're so impressive. They have really interesting backgrounds. There's a lot of PhDs there. And they're talking about all these like statistical terms that I didn't know. And then I still wasn't making any progress at work. So it was like this kind of thing where like, oh, I can't take this anymore. I have to do something. So I finally joined this competition. The competition was in the area of credit risk measurement. So it was a company that partnered with Kaggle. They made loans to individuals, to retail customers, so that those customers can buy something small. Like it might be a $100 loan or $500 loan, and maybe the customer would buy, I don't know, a sewing machine, or they would buy a
I see.
motorcycle or something like that.
Yep.
And the competition was like you'd get all the anonymized information about their application, and you need to figure out who's going to pay back the loan based on information that's only available at the time of the application. And I had some idea that I might have an advantage here because I have a background in financial services. I used to be portfolio manager for a hedge fund. I have a CFA charter.
Okay.
Like I knew something about finance, and I figured I could bring that domain expertise and maybe add some value. And when I started out, I was like squarely in the middle of the leaderboard. So there's maybe like I don't know, a couple thousand people competing, and I was like right in the middle, like maybe place number 1,000 or something, or 1,500. So there's nothing special. But I started reading about what the other people were doing, and I incorporated some of their ideas into my solution, and I published some things, and I could gradually went up the ladder. Then I joined a team. A team picked me to join them. There were like 6 of us. It was really interesting. It was like people from all over the world, person from India, person from Europe, person from South America, somebody from England. I was in the US, so we like everywhere. And we ended up winning a gold medal in that competition. So
Great.
there was something like 3,000 teams competing, and we took ninth place. Ninth place out of 3,000. So it was amazing. I learned a ton. It was very intense. There was no money, but there was a lot of recognition, and it was a very steep learning curve. And after that, I became the only person at the company that had a gold medal in a data science competition. So basically, when everybody would introduce themselves, I would have a very short introduction, and I would say that I'm the only one here. with the gold medal. And then I didn't have to be loud. Like I didn't have to, it didn't matter how much my speaking time was. And, the clients would start requesting me. And that's kind of how I initially broke out of the crowd.
Great, great. It seems like you did a lot of work to become the gold medal. It was not a like easy journey for sure. I mean,
It was a ton of work. And of course, it wasn't just me. I
yeah,
happened to be lucky to join a very talented team. By the way, a lot of those people on that team went on to illustrious careers in Kaggle. They went much further than I did. But at the time, all of us were beginners.
love it. Great. So you basically start consulting in a couple of companies after your last exit. I think in the one of the evaluation company that you
Mhm.
founded, and then you started consulting companies. So when you go to any specific companies for the consulting purpose, so based on my research, you don't talk about anything about AI, right? You start, learn, talk to them. So how exactly the first, I would say 1 or 2 days looks like? What do you talk to them? How you analyze? Is it data?
Yeah,
Is it current process? What exactly you analyze?
yeah, it's a good point. I mean, look, I think of course I'm very excited about AI, so I'm AI positive, but I find that it's distracting in a client conversation because a lot of clients, there's so much hype around AI, there's so much noise that it's
Mm,
very, very difficult to figure out the useful thing that you can do for a client right away. And so, yeah, I find it helpful to have a conversation that starts with what are the client's goals. It's a little bit like, you go to an eye doctor
mm,
and right away, the eye doctor starts telling you how great, new eye technology is, and tells you what kind of glasses you should have. You're probably not going to believe that eye doctor. It's like they didn't even give you an eye exam yet. They didn't diagnose you. It wasn't about you. It was about the glasses.
true,
So that's not right. That's not right. That's not the way uh, medicine is practiced, and it shouldn't be the way CTOs work either.
true.
So technology is only there to help us reach a goal, and you can't reach it if you don't know what the goal is. So I think that a useful place to start a conversation is, what's your vision?
Mm,
And let's start with the far future. Tell me who you want to be, and then we work our way back to the near future, which is like, what's the next step? Like in your goal, what's the next unlock that you need in order to reach your distant future goal, your big goal. And then we figure out, for the small goal, like there may be a way that AI can help you get there faster.
mm.
If you're in the software field, there usually is an answer that with AI can help, that uses AI to help you get there faster. But it always starts with, like what you want, and not sort of, um, you don't want to be a hammer looking for a nail.
True. That's true. Okay. So basically, you understand what is the vision, what they are looking at, and then you try to see if AI can help in that. If yes, then
Right.
let's implement. If not, then there is no use of AI over there. It could
That's
be,
right.
yeah, makes sense.
And
So
it's
I
really
think,
like it's really different for like some I help some startups, I help some larger companies. The goals are totally different. In a
mm,
startup, it might be, they might want to develop a proof of concept or an MVP. And so the goal is to ship something quickly that helps them get credibility and proves to their early customers that something is possible.
yeah,
Um, for an enterprise company, they might be trying to cut costs, right? They might have, a very large infrastructure with lots of people doing things the old way. Maybe they want to do things the new way. Maybe they want to code faster. Maybe they want to decommission some things or like it really all depends on what the goals of the company are.
makes sense. So, so let's consider a scenario over here, right? When you go to a specific company, let's say it's a small company or medium company, or I would say large corporation. Let's say they have a 50 initiatives going on in the AI.
Yeah.
This is very common. You will see in big corporation for sure. And board is asking, what is the ROI in every initiative? So what do you ask them in first 30 minutes? What do you analyze? If let's say every 50 initiative you analyze, what do you analyze in that and how you analyze it? Is it something like you look at technology, you look at the people, you look at the problem they are trying to solve? What exactly you look into that?
Okay. So first of all, if they have 50 initiatives, they're probably not a small company. in a startup, if you're dealing with like a 2-person team, a 5-person team, usually focus is not a problem. Usually they know just what they want, and they're quite focused on it. They're not going to have 50 initiatives. So probably you're dealing with an enterprise company. The closest experience to that I've had have been, when I was head of AI at a Fortune 500 company, and we had over 100 initiatives, and we had this kind of challenge. So yes, at the company governance level, let's say at the CEO level, at the board level, I think it's very useful to go through some sort of a allocation exercise to figure out which of the initiatives are going to be the most important. And in a big company, it's not really feasible for one person, like the CTO, to personally evaluate each initiative. So instead of personally evaluating each initiative, what you really want to do is um, shift the culture so that every initiative gets evaluated locally, but then can get compared globally.
Exactly.
So what does a local evaluation look like? Well, first of all, you want it to be quantitative. You don't want it to be qualitative, because if you have 50 initiatives that each have a qualitative assessment, basically everybody, you're back to the screaming match. Everybody's going to say how great they are. They're going to scramble to use bigger words to show how big they are, and you can't really compare except by volume. That's not really what you want to do. So you need to have some numbers that are going to be able to compare across these initiatives. And there's generally, we could basically use finance to generally break down those numbers into 2 groups. Either an initiative is there to cut costs, or it's there to grow revenue. There's really very little. Like there's something kind of in the middle, which is avoid lost revenue. So kind of like avoid attrition. But we can put that into the grow revenue side. Like it's grow revenue versus the alternative of not having that initiative. So those are really the two camps. And I think it's really important to be, if you're a company allocating a significant amount of capital or people, I think it's really important to be able to compare across those two. Because if you look at them as completely separate islands, you might have cost-cutting initiatives that are certain to save millions of dollars, and they might lose out to growth initiatives that are uncertain but might have a chance at winning one customer.
Yeah.
And if you can't compare them, like you have no way of knowing which one you should. At the same time, you might have like one tiny like little feature that could unlock millions of dollars of revenue.
Oh, yeah.
It's not certain. Maybe it has a 50-50 chance of making extra $50 million versus a cost savings initiative that's going to for sure save you $1,000 a year or even $1 million a year. Well, clearly that's worse.
What is
It's better to
the
have a 50.
what is the role of CTO to decide in this case? Like to cut the cost
think that-
or look at the growth of the increase
So I
revenue
think
or cut
that-
the cost? Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So I think the role of the CTO is to help leadership compare these initiatives on an apples to apples basis. It is not to make the final determination. It's not to set strategy. It's to shift the culture to a numbers driven culture so that, for example, so I'll give you an example of a pattern and an anti-pattern, in my opinion. The anti-pattern, let's say the anti-pattern is everybody has their own budget, and you use it or you lose it. And when you have and so everybody figures out what they're going to do with their slice of the budget, and they will always figure out how to spend all of it, because otherwise their budget shrinks and their power shrinks, and it's like you get lots of local optimum, which is not the global optimum, right? So you have lots of people feeling good about themselves but making suboptimal decisions. That's an anti-pattern. Best practice instead of that would be let's look at customer saving initiatives, cost saving initiatives. So every cost saving initiative comes with not only the description of how great the AI is going to be, but some estimate of how costs are going to be saved. So there's going to be some discussion with operations people, some estimate of the current costs, current typically variable costs, some idea of how well the AI will perform if we meet our goals. And then if the AI performs this well, then these few things that used to be done manually or semi-manually, or they cost us X dollars, now can cost us, X over $10. And so you'd save, 90% of X over this many cases, and you translate it to dollars. So if every cost initiative comes up with something like that, and the operations people are on board, then it's easier for leadership to compare across initiatives and make a globally optimal decision.
Makes sense.
On the revenue side, it's a little bit more challenging. So one thing that I found that really works is, on the one hand, you want something like a labs organization or product organization, maybe even an engineering organization, propose things. You want them to innovate. On the other hand, you want discipline around making sure that the things that are coming out of labs or product are actually things that people want. And so I think that it's very useful to have conversations with salespeople or people that are very close in contact with customers. And then you basically like figure out an engineering team and a sales team make a deal together. They make a joint attestation, and the salesperson basically, the engineering team says, we will build it so that the salesperson is happy. We will build it so that it does what the salesperson thinks it's going to do. And the salesperson says, if engineering builds it the way I think it should work, then I'm willing to take on this extra quota. And the extra quota is the potential.
Makes sense.
So it's kind of a check and balance, because, if a product gets proposed, but no salesperson wants to sign up for any extra quota to sell it, then nobody's really believing that customers want it.
Makes sense. So basically, engineering and sales goes hand to hand, and that's where CTO comes in. They must have a buy-in from salespeople to do the
I think so.
initiative, and then basically it goes to engineering. Okay, cool. This is very
I think
good.
so. And then the size of the buy-in really helps you compare things. Like sometimes if you're dealing with salespeople in like a tiny domain, a tiny territory, maybe a niche product, they might be very excited about a feature, but even if they're right, it turns out that the potential is limited because it's a small domain. On the other hand, you might have a barely interested salesperson, but they have a giant product and a giant territory, and you're fixing something small, but it could have a huge impact. So you always want to translate to numbers.
Yeah, so it's a TAM, basically, total addressable market. Love it.
That's right.
So what is the pattern and anti-pattern that you have seen when people are choosing the initiative? So how you define, or what is the common thing that you have seen they have choose the wrong initiative? And was there any simple pattern that you have seen, okay, out of this, they could have seen this? Or is it all about numbers? How do you look at that?
Sure. I can give you a couple of anti-patterns. I think one anti-pattern is, hey, a new model just got released and it's more capable than the old model. Let's see what we can do with it. So it's basically, again, it's a solution looking for a problem. I think that's an anti-pattern. Another anti-pattern is, hey, our competitors doing X, let's do X. So it's kind of replicating or catching up to what competitors do. I think it's generally an anti-pattern, not as bad as the first one, because there may be some demand for it. A best practice would be listening to what customers are telling you. So usually, like they could get pretty vocal. If there's a pain point, they'll tell you about it. All you have to do is ask, and you have to listen. You have to be a little bit humble, and customers will be happy to tell you what's wrong, with your product, with your competitors' products. And from that, you can kind of distill a pattern. I find that that's a much more fruitful place to start.
Good. So you've been working with a lot of teams and companies, right? And there is always a gap that you found.
A what? Sorry?
There is always a gap that you found in the team. Like, okay, hey,
Sure.
Because nowadays everybody engineering team look at the vibe checks. So what does the actual eval looks like? So let's say I created a voice AI agent. So it's a voice AI agent. It calls to customer. It has been given a specific prompt, scenarios, how to talk to customer and what to do, what not to do. And there is a rag that has been given as a knowledge base to a particular voice AI agent, right? And now let's say there is no evals in that. if I implement the eval, what is the difference? And let's say by implementing eval, I will automatically update the prompt as well, so it will be closed loop. So it will not be an
Okay.
open loop. Just getting the eval will not help me, but by getting the eval, that I'm going to automatically update the prompt as well, so it close the loop basically. So my agent is going to be automatically updated, improve every day. I would say the career path is, I would say, the agent that he proposes. All right. So consider this is a closed loop. How eval can help, and let's say the people who are listening right now, the CTOs and aspiring CTOs, if they don't have an eval system, what is the first thing they have to implement? It's like 0 to 1. Help me, because you already solved your last.
Sure. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I ran an evals company for 2 years
Mm.
called Ragmetrics. So I'm an eval maximalist, you might say. Here's the simplest way to get started. Let's say that you have some sort of an AI system, uses whatever model you picked. Um, it is quite possible that you can switch to a much cheaper model, let's say 10 times cheaper model, and get quality that's 80 or 90% as good as what you have right now.
Mm.
And that trade-off, save 90% of the cost in exchange for a 10% drop in quality. That trade-off might be a very good trade-off depending on what use case you're in, or it might be a terrible trade-off. But you won't know unless you make an eval.
Mm.
So in an eval, you actually are putting numbers to these things. So you look at, instead of just typing in the same thing into the cheaper model and the more expensive model, you can have a program that evaluates 100 different inputs
Mm.
and measures them on a quality scale.
Mm.
And then you'll actually know what the trade-off is, and you might choose to make it. And for some companies, having a 90% decrease in cost can mean it's a life and death thing. It's like whether the
Sure.
company survives or not. Um, Another example is there might be a pattern of mistakes that the AI is making, but it's not the most obvious mistake. You can't discover it by just typing in the first thing that pops into your head, the most common question. Maybe it's the 10th or 12th most common question.
Mm.
And so the only way to stay on top of it, to make sure that you fix that pattern and it stays fixed, is to create a test for it. That test should have a list of questions, not just not just the one top of mind thing, but the 20, 10, 10, 20, or 100 inputs and the desired outputs. And then once you fix it, you can keep running the test to make sure that it doesn't get broken again, so that there's no regressions. And the system changes all the time, right? You upgrade. We have new models coming out all the time. We have new harnesses. There's new breakthroughs in RAG retrieval systems. So there's a lot of flux in the code. When there's flux in the code, it's very easy to break things that used to work.
Yeah.
So just because, as an engineer or as a manager, you're used to seeing the system perform well on some dimension, doesn't mean it's going to stay that way unless you force it to stay that way. So you need an early warning system to catch mistakes that can creep back into code whenever you upgrade. And all of those things are like, it's not that hard to get started. It's just a matter of being a little bit more systematic and also like defining exactly what you want. So when you're scoring an eval, you want a pass fail, or you want a number, and coming up with that pass fail or number means defining exactly what good means in your system. It's going to be different depending on what your system does. If it's a document classification, then good means classifying a document correctly. And if it's a legal lookup system, then good means finding relevant cases. So those are like the very, very different kinds of goals.
Makes sense.
But defining the goal makes it easier for your engineering team to do good work because they're working against something objective. Makes it easier for you as to market your product because you can compare your product to the competition. It makes it easier for you to get better over time. So it's like a lot of good things happen from an evals culture.
Okay, and which are the tools that you suggest that we need to use it?
There's Ragmetrics, of course.
Okay.
I'm a little bit biased, but really, like, there's dozens of tools in evals. Some of them are free. Some of them are built into the platforms. I think Anthropic has a built-in tool. OpenAI has a built-in tool. There's a bunch of open source ones. It's not so much which tool you use. It's really whether you have a culture of continuously taking edge cases and incorporating them into the test harness.
Makes sense. So it is not more about the tools, but it is more about the process and the adoption. Okay, love it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so while I was doing research about you, you mentioned like if any leader spent 70 to 80K on AI project and they saved about 10 to 15 million. And interesting topic was the money that was being saved or being uh, earned from that was the least interesting things for them. So what was the real reason and how these leaders think about using AI or adopting AI and they make millions out of that? What was the what is the mindset and the real reason behind that?
Yeah, so I was describing one of my projects, which had, a very high ROI as you're describing. And it was for a very large company. And it was a kind of a RAG system where there was a human process where highly skilled humans
Hmm.
were answering the phone, doing tech support. And it was a very expensive tech support operation because these people were very expensive. It's not like a minimum wage kind of call center. It was like highly experienced people with, deep domain expertise in what the company does. So it took a lot of money and time to train them. And then the product was very high priced. When customers would call in, there was they kind of expected the phone to be picked up on the first call, which it was, which means you have to staff like a lot of people.
Hmm.
And the idea was that like maybe AI could answer some of the tech support questions that these people were answering. And it was based on this kind of documentation, technical documentation that these people mastered. And so we initially built a system that reached something like 70% accuracy pretty quickly,
Hmm.
just by ingesting the technical documentation was available and building an answer based on that. Um, the way the system worked was somebody would call in, there would be a human agent. The human agent would the call would automatically come to the human agent and also to the AI agent.
Hmm.
The AI agent would write the solution to the human agent, and it would be up to the human agent to either accept it or reject it and like write something else. So we quickly got to like 70% acceptance. But we plateaued. And it was really interesting, like, why did we plateau at 70%? Why not at 40% or 90%? And so we started to dig into some of the errors that the humans were flagging. And it turned out that um, different human agents gave different responses to the same question. And so, and one of them, so they kept marking it wrong because like one of them said it was blue and one of them said it was green and then one of them said it was red, and they
Okay.
kept overriding each other.
Hmm.
And we kept inputting their updates into the model, and it kept getting it wrong because like it would be like a round
Yeah.
robin, like
Yeah.
no, it's red, no, it's green, no, it's blue. Um, and so what we did was we basically these people that were in this, it's kind of like a Wikipedia edit war. In a Wikipedia edit war, people are writing an article together. Um, and sometimes they disagree on some little fact, like, whatever, when did some event happen? Did it happen this year or that year? So they might edit it back and forth, and they're kind of in an edit war with each other. At least they know that they're in the edit war. But in our situation, these three people that had the disagreement, they'd never met. They didn't know that they disagreed because they worked in different call centers. They never had a discussion around the water cooler about what the right color is. So they never even come up. They just assumed that everybody knew that it was green. So the first thing that we did was we created a process where anytime that there's disagreement among people,
Mm.
it would go to a committee. And the committee would be like whichever agents are interested in such things to decide disagreements. So it was like a volunteer thing. And some of these agents were like quite proud, and they loved serving on this committee. And the committee dealt with the most difficult cases, like the gray area. And the committee would work through the gray area, It would meet whatever, once a week or once a month. And after they made a decision, this is the interesting part. After the committee made a decision, then the committee's decision became the ground truth, which means that it's no longer up to the individual agent to say what color it is. Sometimes the committee overrules the individual agent. So now it shifts the source of truth. Sometimes the source of truth is at the individual agent. Sometimes it's at the committee. The more decisions the committee makes, the more it's up to the committee. That's a huge benefit to the company because now they can have global quality control as opposed to local quality.
Makes sense.
In local quality control, everybody decides what color it is,
Yeah.
and it's based on their preferences. In a global quality control, you can have a discussion, and everybody brings their best argument, and we make a decision together, and that's it. That's the answer until we discuss it again, right? So it improved the quality of the answers overall that people were getting, and it also improved the quality of the model. Like the model quickly got from 70 to 80 to 90, 95.
So it's basically the people itself were training. So the committee was training the ground truth for the gray area. Okay, great. Let's deep dive a little bit into technical if you are ready.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, sure.
the first question always every aspiring CTO or CTOs has, whether I need to use GPT-5, Claude, Gemini, open source. What's your real decision making framework look like? Like when to use what? Is it like
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
it's a good question. Honestly, I'm going to point back to your previous question, which is you really want to use numbers, which means that you want to use evals. You don't want to use your gut feeling. You don't want to use whatever worked great last time because these models change so fast that whatever data point you had from 3 months ago is just no longer relevant. So what does it mean? It means that when you're thinking about which model to use, the first thing that you do is you define what good means for you. You define what the desired, like what's the scale, what's the rubric. You create a small eval. A small eval could be 20 or 30 questions. It doesn't have to be 100. And then you put all of the candidates through the paces and you decide on the numbers. You're going to sleep much better at night than if you just if you just have a shouting match or somebody says, look, oh, I used Gemini on Tuesday and it gave me the right answer. Well, who cares? Like we're trying to, it's not about anecdotes. It's about data.
Makes sense. So does that mean that we don't have to depend on this benchmark and those things? We have to try on our data and our use cases. Does that mean like that?
Yes, it does mean that. I think, look, the benchmarks are a problem because the answers to the benchmarks are public, which means that every AI lab, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI or Google DeepMind, they have a huge incentive to cheat on the benchmarks, and they all do. Cheating means they all train on data that's available publicly, and that includes the answers to the test. We know that they cheat because how do we know this? Because if you make even a small perturbation change to the benchmark, the scores go way down. Like, for example, there's a benchmark called MMLU, which is a very popular one. So it's a knowledge benchmark, and it has multiple choice answers. Answer A, answer B, answer C, answer D. And if you just change the letters of the answers, you swap A and C. So now it says answer C, answer B, answer A, answer D. Then the scores on those benchmarks for almost all the models go way, way down. They go like 10 or 15% down. Why? Because the models memorize the letter that has the correct answer instead of the reasoning that leads to the correct answer. Now, this is not always true. It's not always true for every model. It's not always true for every benchmark or every letter, but it's true enough for enough models and enough benchmarks to make benchmarks pretty much useless. So if you're developing something that's worth doing, you should really also develop an eval for it.
Okay, got it. So every AI agent must have an eval of themselves rather than going on the benchmark. Okay, good. But while you built and shipped a lot of LLM apps, let's say more than 100 plus app or 1,000 plus apps, what is the RAG problems that only can be found in the production? Not on the local machine, not on the stage or dev environment, but always on the production. What are that for you? It was like Interesting. I never found this. That was not in the demo stage, but in the production. So what were those kind of problems? Help me to understand those.
Sure. First of all, I haven't shipped 1,000 apps. I probably haven't even shipped 100. It's less than that, but still, like I've shipped more than most people that I know. But yeah, to answer your question, what kind of problems do you find in production that you don't find in development
With the RAG specifically.
with RAG specifically? Sure. Um, so it turns out that when you're developing an AI system with RAG or without RAG, both, you are developing based on what you think customers are going to want to ask.
Mm.
It turns out that what customers actually ask is almost always very different from what you think. People throw the craziest things into your system that you would just never imagine. And when you're building a powerful product, that's a product that can do a lot of things, that has a large surface area, the scope for customers to come up with new ways to use your product is vast.
Mm.
Uh, they might type in a joke, they might type in a personal story, they might
Mm.
type in a prompt injection, they might type in information that you should know, but you don't because it's not, it hasn't been, your RAG database hasn't been updated yet. They might use the wrong word, they might misspell. Like there's a million ways that it could go
Mm.
wrong. And in my experience, the biggest bottleneck to growing the capability of an AI system is just going through that learning loop of, you know, getting a large volume of customer feedback about what went wrong, what's the right answer, and feeding that back into the system. Sometimes it involves for a RAG system. Sometimes it means improving the knowledge base that you're ragging. Sometimes it means improving the mechanism, the search mechanism. There's a lot of dimensions there that you can improve. There's re-ranking, there's keyword search, there's hybrid search, there's hypothetical document embeddings. There's a million things you could try. There's different tracking strategies. And the best way to optimize it is by listening to customer feedback. I don't know of a general purpose prescription. It's really more like medicine. I have to like talk to you. I have to listen to your heart. I have to get you to move your arms, and then I could figure out like what's my advice to you. It's not your advice to you is not going to be the same as advice to me. So
Okay, got it. So it is all about depends on the data as well and the environment and where it is moving. But in the enterprise also, you might have seen the garbage data. Uh,
that's right.
uh,
Sure.
so how that looks like. So help me to understand in very normal language how the garbage data looks like in terms of enterprise
Sure.
situation.
Sure. So, in any kind of, okay, in a startup, you usually don't have this problem because you're starting from scratch. It's greenfield. You source, you source the best data that you can. You source it once because you're doing it the first time. So there's not a lot of noise. In an enterprise, it's like, especially if it's a large enterprise and if it's been around a while, there's going to be layers. It's like an archaeological dig, and
Mm.
there's going to be layers of data, layers of systems, and the line, the provenance diagram is going to be very complex. So provenance diagram means here's some data that I'm observing, let's say in an app, and now I want to trace where did this data come from,
Mm.
like what source system did it come from, what are the processing steps that it went through. And then I can evaluate the quality of the source. Is it a source that I trust or don't trust? So in any kind of enterprise, that provenance graph is going to be very long and some parts of it are going to be uncertain. Maybe the person who is dealing with one of the nodes in the graph is left. Don't really know what they did, what they didn't do. And so that makes it challenging to evaluate the quality of the data. Is the correct number or the incorrect number?
Mm.
And I think that that's the way I see the problem is unclear, unknown provenance. Uh, let's say, I brought you a fancy bottle of wine and
Mhm.
it says, Rothschild Vineyards on the, label. And I want to sell it to you for $1,000. You're probably going to be like, well, the bottle looks good, but how do I know that the wine actually matches what the label says in the bottle? Like, I need to know where'd you get this wine? I need the history. I need to know, like, how do I know that you didn't just like pour some grape juice in there
Yeah.
and and then now you're trying to mark it up to me. So I need the history. Where'd the bottle come from? Is there a certificate? How can you prove that the bottle was never opened, that it's intact, that it's from the source that it says on the tin? And we kind of need to do the same thing with data. So you start with data that's suspect because maybe some customers complained that it's garbage, and you evaluate it with an open mind. Open mind means it might be garbage or it might be gold. The way to tell the difference is I need to hear your story. I need to know your history. Where did you come from? What were the steps? Like, what's the whole assembly line? It's the same way that we trust food, right? Like we have a package of food, maybe
Yeah.
shrink wrap. How do we know that it's good to eat? Well, like there's a process that the government enforces to track the provenance of the food.
Yep.
And we need the same thing for data. So I think it's a useful way to look at it.
Makes sense. Love it. And everybody right nowadays like using Claude and other, let's say, Codex itself. And I keep seeing like agent.md, skill.md, Claude.md. These are very, very important things. What is your thought process about that? I mean, is it over engineering? Is it useful, not useful? What do you think as a CTO?
So it's interesting. First of all, this field is changing very, very quickly. So I'm going to give you some things that I've observed as of when we're recording. So it's what is it? What are we in April? April 2026. But it might change in a couple of months. So the first thing that I've noticed is like prompt engineering makes all the difference. It's very, very high leverage. It's a lot more high leverage than, for example, fine tuning in most cases, because you can get a much bigger change in behavior for a much smaller time investment with prompt engineering than with fine tuning. Also, with fine tuning, every time there's a new model, you have to do another fine tuning run, whereas prompts are yours and they carry over from one system to the other. Secondly, I think that skills are a very interesting paradigm, relatively newer. I think they're also very effective. So the design pattern is that you have a sort of a thin harness and thick skills. Like a lot of the knowledge gets pushed into skills so that people don't have to you could think of a skill as kind of like a saved prompt with some parameters. So instead of publishing the prompt and asking them to cut and paste it, they could just refer to it by shortcut. And that could be very good because you can maintain the prompt centrally and roll out updates to the prompt for everybody, and people don't have to worry about the latest update. They could just access it using the same shortcut. So it's a good way to improve quality in an organization. There are pretty interesting use cases where like companies like I think Stripe and Brex have created internal skills marketplaces where different employees figure out a way to do some part of their jobs and publish that way as a skill. And now everybody can do it. So you can have like a low skilled or new employee has access to the same way of doing things as a senior employee
Makes
without
sense.
going through right. At the same time, there are studies that show that a file like ClaudeMD actually hurts performance. So it turns out that with newer models, with reasoning models, let's say from Opus 4.5 and like GPT-5 plus, they're smart enough to kind of figure out what they need without the orientation file that a ClaudeMD or an agents.md file provides. And people have actually done studies on this where they tried the task with and without that file, and they just measured performance, and performance drops. Why? Because ClaudeMD and AgentsMD is instructions that apply to every task. They're general instructions. So they always increase the size of the context, and they often make it harder for the LLM to pick out the important part of the context to focus on. If you don't have that file, number one, you're using fewer tokens, so it's cheaper and faster. Number two, you're making it easier for the model to pick out what's important, because what's important is not the same for every task. So this is an empirical result. Like we can argue about the theory of why it happens. It is happening according to this paper that I read. So the point of this is that I think things are changing very quickly. I think that it's important to be data driven, and at the risk, Nishant, at the risk of being a broken record, the best way to be data driven is with evals.
Okay, data
So
driven
if you're,
specific.
it's with evals. So if you're really unsure about which way to go, try both. Do an eval. I think that's really the best way to decide.
Makes sense. So let's say if I'm building startup today and it's
Yeah.
let's say an AI agent platform solving for particular one industry. So let's say I would say uh let's say consider it's a medical industry, let's say dental itself. I'm solving for AI agent for dental clinics.
Okay.
Just very simple example. What are the tech stack I need to take care? Is it do I need to make a system in a way it's a talkable? What I mean by talkable, like I can search anything just by typing. It should give me data. I
Yeah.
should speak while I'm driving and it should answer me. Let's say Perplexity or let's say even any other system nowadays talk like everything is going for the voice AI first rather than nobody
Right.
wants to type, right? So is it the first parameter? Second thing, is it MCP first? Third thing, do I need to be always an orchestrator layer implemented always? I mean, what are the tech stack if I'm building a startup today, AI native startup today? What are the things I need to kind of take care? Like these are the checklist. If you can
Sure.
maybe walk me through that.
I think that if you're interested in a startup that's doing AI for dentists for dental, the first thing that you do is you figure out who is going to buy from you, who's going to be the customer. And if you decide that the customer is going to be the dentist, the individual dentist, then I think the next step is to talk to a few dentists and figure out what are their pain points today. Like, have they considered using AI? What have they considered using it for? How did they decide to buy or not buy? What do they wish that AI did for them that it's not doing right now? And I think that that'll give you a lot of the answers of like what is the problem that needs to be solved. Because I don't know. Like I'm not a dentist, and we can each have hypotheses. And you might say, well, voice is very important, and I might say, dentists don't have time to like talk to stuff, and like they don't have questions. They're in there, digging into your mouth. So like, what are they going to say? So like, you could be right, and I could be wrong, or I could be right. Like, but really, the best way to figure it out is to talk to some dentists.
So the question is, let's say I figure out what dentists want, and it's a AI agent that can solve their problem. So
Which
question
problem?
So let's say they don't have a time to pick up the call, or after office hour, they don't have a time to, or somebody there to pick up the call. So what they
Right.
want, and while they are kind of doing the drilling in your mouth, they want some of the data. So it should be voice free itself. Hey, do this for me. Get me this data. Get me the data for this patient. Can you check what was the blood pressure of this guy in the last report? So I'm just thinking agentic system right now. So tell me, like
Right.
now you have a more context, I would say. So tell me,
Sure.
like, does it require orchestrator? So what are the baseline that every AI agent system must have? Is it voice? Is it LLM for sure, right? LLM prompting,
Sure.
orchestrator layer. What are the other thing? Eval as well. I'm sure eval is required. So
Yes.
what are the tech stack that you, Alan, if you are building the system, you will take care first?
I think that every AI system needs an LLM, and every AI system that I know also needs an eval. I think those two things are advice that applies everywhere. That's kind of like the medical equivalent of everybody could use exercise and everybody should eat healthy. But if you're asking for more specific advice than that, I think it's patient by patient and
Mm.
customer by customer. So in your case, I heard two or three different problems. Problem number one that I heard in our hypothetical case is answer the phone when the dentist is busy. So I happen to be advising a company that's doing that kind of work. It's called Front Desk Pro, and they basically create a voice agent that answers the phone for house professionals like plumbers and electricians and garage door installers and gutters cleaners. And I could tell you what the stack is for that. We can go into detail, as much detail as you like. Um, a different kind of problem that I heard was maybe looking at the preparing for the patient. So, like looking at the chart which includes maybe some notes and some imaging and other stuff, and figuring out how to maximize the value from the chart. Maybe that happens even before the patient is in the room. So that's a different kind of thing, right? That's about, you probably need a multimodal model that can process X-rays and notes from the clinician and notes from the dentist and the structured data, the history of when the patient showed up. It probably needs some kind of a checklist. Maybe it needs to check against recent literature. So it's a very different kind of process and stack and evals than the first one that we did, which is answering the phone.
Yep,
So
makes
you
sense.
have a different definition of what it means to win, what's good. You probably you pick different models, you pick different evals, all that stuff.
Makes
Does
sense.
that help?
Yeah, 100%. So basically what I understood is like LLM and evals both are common in everything regarding if it's an AI agentic system. Everything else depends on whether it's you need to choose the vision LLM or without LLM. The speed matters a lot, accuracy matters. What is your particular use case look like? In the voice AI, it's always latency first. So you must have a lowest latency or number of low token comes first. Okay, get it. Perfect. I think this leads me to like if I'm building an AI startup, or let's say I'm an enterprise, I want to start the AI practice in my organization.
Sure.
You mentioned that you don't have to hire. So this is advisory to CTO, or I would say uh, CXO. If you want to start an advisory for the AI, you don't have to hire the engineer first, but you have to hire the leader. Why?
Right. Right. Because if you hire the engineer first, um, they're really not going to tell you what is worth building and what's not worth building. So if you're a business person and you have a vision, you would like to build some things, you want an AI practice, you start with an engineer and they're basically going to say yes to anything. Like if you ask, can you build this? They're going to say yes. Can you build that? They're going to say yes. That's what engineers do. They go where you point them. And that is kind of skipping a step. And the step that you're skipping is the analysis of what should you build. Just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. And just because you should build something doesn't mean you should build it first. So there's an optimal sequence, and there's some things move the needle more than others. Now, if you just have an engineer executing, it's also going to be very difficult for them to execute in isolation. Typically, if it's a mid-level engineer, they might be technically brilliant, but even if they're technically brilliant, they might, in order to get AI off the ground, it takes a village. You need cooperation from all these different teams. So, you need domain experts to opine on the eval and figure out like what's good and bad. You need the finance department to figure out how much things are costing. And they need to provide some cost control pressure. Otherwise, the cost of the system can spiral out of control, which we've seen. You need to have some pipeline to what the customers are saying. So that feedback needs to get back to the engineer very quickly. And in an enterprise, that's not usually a straight line. You need to have some measurement of the impact that the system is driving. That's a business measurement. That's not a technical measurement. Usually the engineer will have trouble with that. It's figuring out like what processor you're replacing, how often are you replacing it? Are you replacing it to what level of quality? So typically what happens when you hire the engineer first is they'll do the demo super quick. It's going to be amazing. It's going to look real good for the 90-second demo, which is all the attention that the CEO has. And then the CEO says, the demo looks good. Great. Make it so. And the engineer will push something out, except like nobody wants it. Because as soon as you deviate from the demo, it doesn't have the domain the engineer doesn't have the domain expertise. Customers start asking it things that the engineer doesn't know about, and they're getting some kind of crazy answers. They get frustrated, but the engineer doesn't talk to customers because it's not their job. They're builders. And so the feedback from the customers doesn't get to the engineer, and it, like very, very quickly goes off the rails. And a few months later, the CEO is like, "Hey, where are we with the this thing that the demo was so great. It's like, oh, and the engineer says, oh, perfect. Like I shipped it. And then the salesperson's like, the what? Like I never even heard of that. So, so that's a miss. That's a miss
I
because
see.
there's no impact.
Okay.
There's no impact. There's a performance. The box got checked, but there's no impact to the financials. There's no ROI. And I've seen a lot of
I see.
customers fall into that trap.
So what I heard from you is rather than building fast, build things right. Or I would say, what is the right thing for the customer? Build for that rather than building faster. I get it. So first of all, figuring out that's where the leaders help. Shipping is always nowadays it's a commoditized already because it Claude, GPT, everything runs fast. Okay, got it. So I'm sure like these are the common problems that you face as well. When you go to this $1 billion plus revenue companies, you have to you've been prepared for them to digital transformations,
Mm,
but CFO doesn't understand those what is AI, and they just understand the numbers like
yep.
okay, x amount invested, this is ROI, this is only I look at that.
Right.
Is needle moving in the account or no, is needle
Sure.
moving in the revenue or no. They don't look at the okay they don't look at that. How as a CTO or fractional CTO you go into that companies, how you talk to CFO to unlock that budget. I'm sure because you have to get the buy-in from them as well. How do you
Yeah.
do?
100%. I actually really enjoy working with CFOs. I think a CFO can be a terrific ally to an AI transformation agenda. So typically in an enterprise, the first conversation, the easiest conversation with the CTO is going to be about cost savings. So
Mm,
you typically pick out some cost center that's high on on the CFO's agenda, and you figure out like how to, what's the lowest hanging fruit, what's the most repetitive, painful, human, expensive process that we do, and you basically the pitch to the CFO for that would be like, if we can reach this level of quality with AI, we can replace this much labor with. So this is like a straight automation story. It's very easy to explain. It's
mm,
very easy to translate into numbers. It's usually pretty easy first step. Now, see, the CFO can get behind that. Typically, the biggest question that they'll have is, but will you get to that quality? Like, how do you
mm,
know whether you get to that quality or not? Because if you don't get to the right level of quality, you can't really replace the human labor. It's just an addition. It's an additional expense. And the answer to that is usually with an eval. Like eval proves the quality. So you start there. After you've delivered a couple of cost savings, and the cost savings can be observed by the CFO, you can typically have a higher bandwidth, higher stakes conversation about revenue growth.
mm,
And for revenue growth, I think that the way to have the discussion with the CFO is first to have the discussion with sales. Sales is typically going to see the risk and the opportunity before the CFO. So you could start with looking at accounts that are, if this is a like subscription business, you could start
mm,
by looking at accounts that are at risk of attriting. So maybe there's a competitor that's rolled out some AI features, and maybe there's a senior salesperson that's managing a multi-million-dollar account, and they can see that the customer might not renew because they might go with this competitor. And that salesperson usually has a good idea of what would it take to keep that customer, what
mm,
features are required, what benefit or what problem needs to be solved in order to keep that customer. If you have a couple of those anecdotes and you bring them to the conversation with the CFO, you could say, well, the status quo, the base case is we will lose, whatever, $5-10 million of revenue from all these at-risk customers, not according to me, the technologist, but according to these salespeople. Here
mm.
are their names, here are the accounts. You can go and verify this with any of them. So if we do nothing, like lose this much. If we develop an AI feature that's required to block this, to close this gap, we can maybe lose none of them, or maybe like we lose 50% of them, or we lose
Makes sense.
10% of them, or maybe even we gain some. So so saved attrition is again like quantifiable for the CFO, and it's not just a song that the technology is singing. It's a choir, right? It's a choir of salespeople and technologists that are in there together. And then the hardest part is The hardest part is the pure revenue growth story. It's not saving accounts. It's like, I want to be the first one to innovate and introduce this new product, this new feature, and I think it's going to be amazing. That's a tough one, right? Because just because AI can do it doesn't mean customers want it. So you need to have, this is like the same dilemma that a startup has. You need to try to get some evidence, some proof point that this is something people want. And that's hard to do. There's a lot more ideas than real needs. So
I'm
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. But nowadays, so let's say in the previous era where generative AI was not that much involved, like I would say 2000, before 2021 or 2, uh, if I talk about the system at the system level, we were doing authentications. So everything was running through API. So system to system talk. So if two system wants to talk each other, they will do handshaking either at the TCP layer or and then we'll do authentication layer, and then there will be a kind of refresh token at those. So those are the authentication layer was being built. Now in the AI, it's an open system. Yes, you do authentication one and then you type anything, it should get the data. Only guardrails will solve this problem, or what are the things we need to keep it over there from the AI security point of view? Help me to understand as a CTO.
Okay. The first thing I would do, Nishant, is I would gently push back on some of the premises of the question. So I don't think that AI is by default an open system. I think that it takes a lot of care and effort to make it seem like an open system. In other words, let's say if we're talking about MCP as the glue that replaces API, then, in the best case, MCP will allow a system to expose its data as like a structured, JSON packet, and maybe it'll be able to accept, it'll be able to operate some tools, but all of that requires design and architecture. It's not built in. So I think that it's a very good goal to design a data platform or to design any kind of enterprise platform to support MCP, so that it can be an MCP server to clients that people use, like Cloud Code or Codex or what have you. And if you design it well, then it's seamless, right? Then I can just talk to it and I can get the data that I want. But in order to give that experience, there's like a lot under the hood, and it takes a lot of time and expense. And then if you do that, you have to balance. You're basically giving users a lot of power, because rather than making users go through your menu system and your GUI, they can now use text to basically get the data that they want. And agent goes to different islands of data or functionality across your system. They can stitch it together in an ad hoc manner, just in time for what the user wants. So it's a very powerful story. And with great power comes great responsibility, right? So when you're delivering that power and putting it in the hands of users, you need to simultaneously think about the security model. So it's very easy to miss it, and then basically have one user gain access to things that they shouldn't, maybe from other users, maybe at a different level of authorization. And so, it's basically the more powerful the system is, the more challenging the security model is. The security model is not going to be a point solution. It's typically going to be a layered solution at every layer of data or platform. You think through like how to provide that isolation and how to ensure that whichever agent is actually requesting something, that they're authorized to do that thing. And unfortunately, like I don't know of a one size fits all solution to that either. It really depends on, kind of think through the use cases and the different abuses, and you figure out like sort of how to stop it at different levels.
Okay, got it. Oh, love it. So I think what I understood is like it is not an open system, and then what you mentioned is like at the different data layer, there is always a different data layer security in place. So it is not an open for sure, but it still activates the bad actors to get in easily, because McKinsey's chatbot simple agent get into that and then they read and write 47 million
It's a big
answer.
risk.
Yeah. So there is a risk for sure. Okay, got it. So let's move to the rapid question. I think this will be very interesting. You have to just answer one liner.
Quickly.
Yeah,
Yes.
quickly. Yeah, perfect. So let's say if I'm building a RAG for enterprise, which
Okay.
model perfect fit? GPT, Claude, Gemini, or something else?
Use an eval.
But which model for the eval as well?
Which model for the eval? If I'm using a rack system, if I'm building a rack system and I know nothing about the use case, I'd probably pick the top 3 or 4 models that are being marketed. So today I'd pick Opus 4.7, I'd pick GPT 5.5, I'd pick Gemini Pro 3.1, and I'd probably pick an open source model. So I'd maybe pick Kimi K 2.6. Those 4 would probably be a good start.
Okay. One thing every system prompt needs, which most of the teams keep while they are writing the prompt.
Say again, what's the question?
Which is the one thing most of the people, when writing the prompt, they miss always. They don't want to write it. Is it guardrail? Is it more instruction, detail instruction, use cases? What exactly they miss? But that is most important thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you'll be happy with my answer, but most teams are missing an eval. They're missing an eval. Let me just, if I can elaborate on that a little bit. Most teams are building a prompt based on what they remember at the moment that they're writing the prompt, whatever's top of mind. And that's usually not enough. You need to have the eval basically expands your memory in test cases to 30, 50, 100, 1,000, and it lets you be so much more systematic. And most teams are missing it. Most teams are building without it.
But a side question for this, how eval can help to improve the existing prompt? Is there any closed loop, automatic loops available?
An automatic loop is very desirable, and I would call it the end stage. If you're just starting out, you don't need an automatic loop. Like you can get way better in your prompt if you just create an eval with 30 or 40 cases where you like handwrite the correct answers. It'll take you an hour, maybe 2 hours, and it'll greatly improve the quality of what you're building without having to spend a lot of time reading papers.
Fine tuning versus prompt engineering. What do you choose?
You choose prompt engineering first, for sure, every time. If prompt engineering alone gets you to your performance goal, you're done. If not, then you graduate to fine tuning.
MCP, overhyped or game changer?
That's a tough one. I'm going to say that it is a bit overhyped.
Okay.
It's a bit overhyped. I think that you can get almost everything almost all the benefits that you get from MCP, you can also get from a plain old API. And I think that MCP has a lot of problems with token efficiency that basically increase your cost. That's very good for Anthropic. It's very good for OpenAI, and not so good for you as the customer.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, AI buzzword that you most hear that in the boardroom. Like, is it MCP?
The AI buzzwords that I most hear in the boardroom?
Yeah.
OpenClaw, agent, what else? Vibe coding, and and model names.
Okay.
You hear a lot of those. So this is kind of like the tools. You hear a lot about the tools. You don't hear a lot about the benefits.
Makes sense. As a CTO, what is the best investment they can do under 10K right now?
They being who?
CTO.
As a CTO. So like an enterprise. The best investment under 10K that most enterprises can do right now is build an eval. By far. You're asked for short answers. That's the shortest.
I think
answer
that's
can give.
needed, right? I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I need your opinion. So
Because most people are not doing it. Like it's actually an opportunity for the vast majority of enterprises.
okay. Would you be interested to start again for the eval company? You already solved one.
No, I think I'm good. After 2 years of trying to persuade people of this like super amazing cheap thing that they could do, it's kind of like, selling broccoli at the supermarket. You're right next to the ice cream aisle. All they want to do is buy the ice cream. And evals are the broccoli. So I think I'm done with that.
So what is the biggest lie that big corporates or the enterprise people speaking lie about their readiness for the AI?
I think that I wouldn't call it a lie. That's a bit strong, but I think that if you look at the next corporate press release or the next corporate leader talking about the use case, if you listen for it carefully, you'll hear about features. Most of the time, you'll hear about features and not benefits.
I
So,
see.
so to answer your question, what's missing? What's missing is what was the result? What was the impact?
I
How much
see.
money did you save? How much did quality improve? What are the numbers?
I see. What is the one better metrics rather than token usage if you are measuring just specific to development I'm talking about? What else can be measured better than token usage? Because I see
I-
NVIDIA CEO talks about token usage
Yeah.
high. I see them, okay, they are using AI or adopting AI. Based on you, CTO, Alon, what metrics you measure apart from token usage?
Well, first of all, I think token usage is a terrible, terrible measurement. It would be like, measuring the quality of an aircraft based on its weight.
Mm.
That's not what you want. You just end up with very heavy things that don't go anywhere. It makes complete sense for Jensen Huang to talk about token usage because guess what? He makes GPUs that are token machines.
I-
So, when you sell apples, you say everybody needs an apple a day. And that's basically what he's saying. It doesn't mean that that's the best measure of performance. I think that we actually don't need new measures of performance. I think we can talk to the CFO and use their language. We know about profit. We know about revenue and costs and net profit. Those are the right measurements for AI as well.
I
I
see.
think ROI is really the best measurement, and you can get even more specific with internal rate of return and all the finance language. So rather than creating new metrics to fit this new tool, I think we need to adapt the tool to fit the metrics that we all know.
If AI didn't exist, or consider AI is not at the boom right now, what you could be doing right now?
Um, I feel like AI is booming. You're saying if it wasn't booming,
If it was not booming, what
gosh,
would you be doing right now?
I'd probably be retired, honestly. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've had a good career. I met some amazing people. I did some things. AI is just so exciting. I just can't sit on the sidelines. There's too much to do.
Hmm.
If we were not in this AI moment, I think I'd probably, be on the beach somewhere.
Do you feel too much, sometimes overwhelmed as well? Like every day something new is popping up. Do you feel
You
overwhelmed?
know, I don't. I feel like a kid in a toy store. There's
Okay.
so many toys to play with. There's not enough time in the day. I read papers, AI papers every week. I watch a bunch of YouTube videos. I do my best to keep up. There's no way for me to keep up. I can't keep up. But it's so exciting. It's moving so quickly. So many things are possible. I'm really enjoying myself.
Love it. And one book that every CTO has to read before their next AI meeting for the boardroom, or the paper that you can think of, like
Yeah. So the thing is, I can't really recommend any AI books because it's moving so quickly
mm,
that by the time it's a book, it's kind of, it's like an ancient history book. Um, I really like the Lean Startup because it talks about how to move more quickly with less evidence and how speed and iteration can really win over like very, very careful study and preparation.
okay.
Um, and I think that mindset can serve leaders very well in the age of AI.
Love it. Okay. Someone, last question.
Yeah,
Someone right now listening to this podcast, and they feel like they are behind in AI like 6 months or a year, right?
yeah,
And because they feel, because their computer is keep pushing every day, keep shipping every day, but they haven't shipped anything yet. They are still
right.
figuring out, okay, what is the right thing? Do I need to ship it? Do I don't need to ship it? Like they feel like, because they are running the existing company, they have a cost to bear as well every month. They have a salary, the cost, everything, right?
Sure.
What do you tell them? not the strategy. But I would say,
Right.
what do you tell them the first thing they do tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.?
Well, Nishant, this is a little bit of what my consulting practice is about. I help those kind of people figure out what to do. And again, the answer is a little bit different from person to person. So I don't have a universal prescription, but I would say um, it's probably a very good exercise to take a step back and just imagine what you want your company to be.
Hmm.
There's a lot of constraints that, as a business owner, you're used to living with. Imagine what it would be like if those constraints fell away and like describe what you want, like draw a picture of it, write a document about it, set up a couple of goals. I think that's a very good use of, half an hour to an hour and a half of time.
I see. Love it. Great. Yeah, Alan, thank you so much. Thanks for your time and perfect. Hope over all the audience will get a lot of values from this. And thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Nishant.
And that's right there. Alan has gave tremendous knowledge, which normally consultants charge you thousands of dollars in an hour. One thing you have to take from this podcast was your AI problem is not your model. You have to understand, define the problem, what actually your success look like. That see if it can measure, your team can test, and your AI can execute. Fix that first. Everything else will follow. If this episode hit different for you, share with one CTO, one aspiring CTO, and one founder who is stuck right now. This is the conversion they need. Subscribe to our CTO story because every single episode we bring you to the people who are actually done it. No theory. Real decision or real outcome. I will see you in the next one.